Story time about how a cop intimidated me into going on a date with him. This all happened 6 years ago when I had just turned 18. I had saved up a lot of money to buy a car. When I finally got my new car, I felt so independent. My dad would help me pay for the insurance and the gas, and I just had to take care of the car and make sure I drove safely. And I was a really safe driver. I never sped or made any illegal turns. In fact, I was scared of other people driving, so I was extra careful. Even though I was 18, my parents still had a curfew on me. I come from a Latin family and they are very strict, so I followed the rules. Around this time, my parents started letting me date. I was really excited because there was this boy in high school who always wanted to date me, but I could never say yes. I told him we were finally able to date and he got really excited. We started going to the beach and hanging out with friends. But this meant that I would have to drive long distances to the beach and back. And my biggest fear was to get pulled over. I don't know, for some reason I thought that was like the worst thing in the entire world. On my way to the beach one day, I get pulled over by this cop. I knew I wasn't speeding and I hadn't done anything illegal. I pull over and he asks me for my documents. Then he just stares at me for 30 seconds without saying anything. The first thing out of his mouth is, "Wow, you're very pretty. Part 2 is up." Part 2 of how a cop intimidated me into going on a date with him. The first thing out of his mouth is, "Wow, you're really pretty." Then he asked me if I was single. I instantly froze up and didn't even know what to say to him. Keep in mind, I had just turned 18. I felt totally vulnerable and exposed. He put his hand on my car door and leaned down towards me. This guy was really intimidating. Then he asked me a bunch of questions. Was I single again? Was I dating anyone? Was I still in high school? Did I have other friends that were pretty like me? I would laugh off his questions because I didn't even know how to respond. I was in total shock and didn't know what to do. Then he says, "Seriously though, are you single?" And since I technically was, I said yes. His demeanor totally changed. He became more aggressive. Then he said, "What do you think if I go pick you up tonight for dinner?" He points to my license and says, "You live right by me." My knees started to shake. Finally, I said, "I'm actually seeing someone." Then he just stares at my entire body up and down. He stroked my hair and asked me if I was scared. Part 3 is up. Part 3 of how a cop intimidated me into going on a date with him. After he stroked my hair and asked me if I was scared, I said no. He could clearly see my hand shaking though. He knew that I was scared. He finally backed off and handed me my documents. He goes to his car and leaves me waiting for 13 minutes. By the way, my friends and the guy that I was seeing were waiting for me at the beach. That's when I start getting phone calls from him. I decided to answer and tell him what was going on. That's when he said to me to not get out of the car and to just say no to anything he said. That's when the cop bangs on my window. He asked me who I was talking to on the phone. I hung up the phone and told the cop that I was talking to my dad. I finally got the courage to ask him if I did anything wrong. He said no, but he saw a pretty girl, so he had to pull her over. He fully expected me to laugh at that. He finally handed me my license back and asked me when we were gonna go on that date. Again, he crouched down and was right in my face. I said we could go on a date that night. I gave him a wrong phone number. Of course, I didn't show up to the date. I told my parents and we went to the nearest police station. We made a complaint, but nothing ever came of it. They essentially told him to leave me alone. Remember, he knows where I live. I feel like he probably watches and stalks me. What should I do?
Story time on how my first boyfriend bit and ripped out a chunk of my hair. Me and him were arguing and I was sitting on this like college dorm like bed, so it was really high up. I turned on my camera because I wanted to record our argument because he would say these things and then be like, "I didn't say that." So I turned on my camera and he didn't know. He starts threatening to hit me. He's doing this in my face, so I got scared and went to go push him out of my face with my foot. I was aiming for like his gut and his belt with my foot, but my foot kind of slid down the front of him and flubbed his little wiener. He completely went insane. He jumped on top of me and then starts yelling in my ear and then bit and ripped out a chunk of my hair. He spits my hair out onto the floor, then picks up this glob of hair and puts it in his pocket. I had so much adrenaline going through my body. It didn't hurt considering like there was literally a bald spot where he ripped out my hair. Like my brain could not comprehend what just happened. Like I was in disbelief. He ends up going over to my friend's apartment who was down the hall from me. My hair was sticking out of his pocket and his guy friends go, "Why do you have Cece's hair in your pocket?" Of course he lies and goes, "Oh my goodness, Cece's crazy, guys, I'm telling you. She started ripping out her hair in an argument." And one of his friends was like, "Oh dear, that does not sound like she's okay. I'm gonna go check on her." So he comes to check on me and he's like, "I heard you were ripping out your hair." And I was like, "No, he bit and ripped it out and I have it on camera." Sadly, I did not press charges against him and he is now in the army. This was my first relationship and I had no idea what I was supposed to do. This was like 3 years ago, so although it was really traumatic at the time, to me now it's just kind of a funny story.
You know that one friend that's just always down for anything and does the absolute most? Sometimes takes it too far and ends up injured or in a bad situation? Yeah, that's me. I'm that friend. One time I went to my best friend Becca's ranch, which is like 7 hours away, and we went with our other 2 friends at the time. And around her ranch, there's like a bunch of wild cows just grazing in the pasture. I don't know what my thing is about cows, but I just love them. Like, I think they're the most sweet, gentle creature ever. I actually own a cow at my aunt's ranch in Texas, and I was like enamored with that thing when I was little. But this day I learned a hard lesson that they're not always so gentle. So, first day we get there, I hop out of the car, I notice there's a cow laying in the pasture, and I walk over to it. And I was petting that thing for like a good 10 minutes. Like, it was the sweetest cow ever. And so the cow slowly gets up, and in my mind, I'm like, I could probably ride this thing. So here's an image of the first time I attempted that, and then I was like, nah, this is too scary, like, I'm backing out. But then a couple hours later, all the cows are like chilling in the pasture, and I'm like, these cows are pretty tame. They're pretty nice. I think I could do it. And my friends were like trying to talk me out of it. They're like, Jessie, you're an idiot and you're gonna get killed. Don't do it. But were we gonna listen to them? No. Continuing on, I was like, all right, we doing this. So I did it. Everything's going well. Yes, and I convinced them to do it too. And this is where I take it too far and things go south. So what I realized is if you gently pat the cow's butt, it makes them walk a little faster. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna have way too much fun with this. So I started patting a little harder. We got to a trot. So I'm thinking, okay, I've ridden bareback on a horse more times than I can count in my life. I think I can handle this guy. So I turn to my friends and I'm like, hey guys, watch this. Famous last words, I know. And so I turn around and slap the cow's butt as hard as I possibly can. I would like to publicly apologize to that cow. I still feel bad about that. I'm sure you have a nice family at home. But I'm here for a good time, not a long time, clearly. So I slap its butt as hard as I can, and that thing starts bucking. Like, what did you expect, Jessie? Did you really think that thing was gonna gallop? It was bucking hard. I actually stayed on for a few seconds, which is why I think I'd be good in a rodeo. I was thigh gripping onto it for dear life, but it kept bucking harder and harder, and when I tell you I flew off of that thing, landed in a cow pie. Later, my best friend ended up telling me she actually thought I broke my neck and instantly died. I was folded. By the grace of God, all I had is a pretty bad concussion, but would I do it again? Yes.
Already know, grab a snack, sit back, relax, because it's chisme time. So I have this stepsister, and the whole time that we lived together, she was always jealous of me, and she was always copying me. Now, at one point, me and her were really close, but then she started to snitch on me. We'll go ahead and call her Jasmine. At first, everything was fine with us, but then it started with the first time that she snitched on me. The first time this happened, I was sneaking my boyfriend into my house while everyone was sleeping, and Jasmine was the only one that I told, and I never, ever got caught in the act. But for some reason, Jasmine decided to tell her mom that I was sneaking him in. And I think it's really weird that Jasmine snitched on me when I also knew stuff about her too. Like how she snuck a guy into the house she met on the 3rd day of school. And how I also heard that she would actually try to do that constantly with other guys, but they would always decline her because she didn't have good hygiene down there. So yes, I could have used all of these things against her. But after the first time she snitched me out, I soon realized that Jasmine just couldn't be trusted. Second time something like this happened, I had this pen and I kept it to myself because I knew that Jasmine would snitch. And this one specific day we went to the garage at the same time, and that's when my pen fell out of my pocket and she saw it. I was getting ready for her to run into the garage and go tell our parents, but instead she was like, oh, can I take a hit? So then after she asked me that, I thought maybe if I let her hit it, she won't snitch on me. So I was like, yeah, that's fine, here you go. Like, you go ahead and take a hit, you know, do whatever you need to do. Fast forward to the next day, my dad comes storming into my room asking where the pen was at, because she snitched on me again. Like, the fact that I let her take a hit from the pen and she still snitched on me. So then later on, I ended up getting a hickey from my boyfriend and I tried to hide it from her too, but she ended up seeing it and she snitched on me again. And not to mention, I also ended up telling her a secret that I never told anyone else. And she also ended up telling my mom and my dad. So ever since then, I'll never trust anyone again because that secret was so deep and I felt so close to her at the time that I could tell her that secret, and she did me dirty like that. So all I have to say to you guys is, and the next time I see her, we're gonna tussle. We're gonna fight.